I woke up to a sharp, rhythmic thumping sound. At first, I thought it was just a branch hitting the side of the cabin, but it didn't stop. It was steady, insistent. I sat up on the creaky mattress, heart already picking up speed. I reached for the flashlight on the nightstand, but the batteries had long died. The dim light of early morning bled through the curtains. I pulled on my boots without lacing them and grabbed the axe by the door. When I swung it open, I froze. She was there, a snow leopard, standing no more than 10 feet from my front door. Her coat was patchy in places, as if she'd rubbed it raw against stone or wire. Her ribs pushed against her skin. 3 small cubs clung close to her legs, one of them limping, another barely able to keep its eyes open. She didn't growl. She didn't run. She just looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Desperation. I didn't move at first. My thoughts scattered like startled birds. What do I do? Back inside. Call someone. Who? There's no reception up here. The radio hasn't worked in weeks. The cub with the dull eyes stumbled and sat down heavily. The mother turned her head toward it, nudged it gently, then looked back at me. Her eyes didn't flinch. I swallowed hard and slowly reached for the plastic water bucket beside the steps. It was half full from last night. I poured some into an old metal bowl and slid it toward them, inch by inch. She didn't move. But the moment I stepped back, she took one cautious step forward. Then another. She lowered her head and drank. Not fast. Not like an animal in a frenzy. Slowly. Deliberately. The cubs followed, lapping at the edges. My hands were shaking. Something inside me cracked open. A dam I didn't know existed gave way. I sat on the steps, not caring about the morning chill. They stayed for maybe 10 minutes. Then she backed up, nudged her cubs, and slowly turned to leave. They vanished into the tree line without a sound. I didn't move for a while. Later that morning, I walked down the gravel road toward the old ranger's trailer. Frank had been here longer than anyone. Retired Forest Service. He knew every track and tree within 10 miles. I found him splitting wood behind his trailer, same way he did every morning. "You look like you saw a ghost," he said. "I think I did," I replied. I told him everything. The leopard, the cubs, the water. He leaned on his axe and frowned. "You sure it wasn't a lynx? Mountain lion, maybe?" "No. She was white. Spotted. Too big for a lynx. And too calm for a cougar." His face tightened. "That makes no damn sense. There hasn't been a confirmed snow leopard sighting here since the research station shut down. They weren't supposed to be here even then." "Well, she was." He didn't argue, just stared past me into the woods. "Then it's either a miracle or a warning." By afternoon, I had returned to the cabin. I left the bowl outside, filled with fresh water. I even put out a few scraps of leftover meat. I knew it wasn't smart. I knew it was risky, but something about her gaze haunted me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made my heart lurch. Around 2 in the morning, I finally gave up and stepped outside. The moon hung low and yellow. She was back, curled on the porch, breathing heavily. One of the cubs lay beside her, unmoving. Its small chest wasn't rising. I didn't think. I stepped closer. She didn't stir. I crouched next to the cub and laid a hand gently on its side. Cold. Gone. She looked at me then. Eyes glossy. Empty. And yet, she stayed. She let me near. Let me touch her cub. Let me see her in this state. I whispered, "I'm sorry." And then I sat down beside her. Until morning. I didn't sleep at all. The morning sun lit the porch slowly, revealing the still shape of the cub beside her. I stepped outside, barefoot, ignoring the cold wood beneath me. She didn't move. The remaining cubs were curled up next to her, but their eyes followed me. I crouched beside the body, then looked at her. "Let me help." I reached forward, slowly. No sudden movements. My hand touched the small, cold form. Still no reaction from her. She watched. That's all she did. Watched. The cub was light. Too light. I wrapped it in a towel and whispered something useless. Something like a promise. She stood, finally, stretching weakly. Her eyes never left mine. Then she nudged the 2 living cubs gently, as if urging them to stay put, and took a step back into the tree line. Still watching. I went inside and came out with an old pet carrier. I hadn't used it in years. I looked at the smaller of the 2 cubs, the one who'd barely kept its eyes open yesterday. It looked worse now. Limp. Breath short. I bent down. The moment my fingers touched its fur, she took a step forward. I froze. She growled. Quietly. Not a threat. A warning. I have to take him, I said. My voice broke halfway through. I lifted the cub. She didn't move. Her ears were back, tail flicking, but she didn't charge. She was trembling. I placed the cub into the carrier, carefully, adding a soft towel and an old wool glove. The tiny creature curled into itself. Back inside, I threw on jeans and a flannel, grabbed my keys, and carried the crate to the truck. The drive to town would take nearly 40 minutes if the road hadn't washed out again. I checked the gas gauge. Half a tank. The old Ford groaned awake, suspension creaking under the sudden movement. I kept glancing at the carrier beside me. 20 minutes in, I stopped for gas just outside Miller's Corner. It was still early, but a couple of locals were already there, sipping coffee by the ice machine. As soon as I stepped out, one of them squinted at the crate in the cab. "What you got in there?" "Injured animal," I said. "Looks wild. That a lynx or something?" I didn't answer. The second guy pulled out his phone and started filming. "That legal. You should call animal control," the first added. I pumped the gas faster, avoided eye contact, and jumped back in. Their voices followed me as I pulled away. At the clinic, the receptionist didn't even look up until I placed the carrier on the counter. Her smile dropped. "What is that?" "Snow leopard cub. Maybe 4 weeks old. Starving. Breathing shallow." She looked around nervously, then disappeared into the back. The vet came out a minute later. "Young. Maybe 30. Pale." "You're serious? This is a snow leopard." "Yes. Can you help him?" He hesitated. This might be a federal issue." "Where did you find it? You want to fill out forms, or do you want to save it?" That got him moving. He took the crate, glanced inside, and disappeared with it. I paced, checked the windows. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept imagining her waiting up there, not knowing if her cub would come back. After what felt like hours but couldn't have been more than 40 minutes, the vet returned. "He's weak, dehydrated, underweight, but he's still fighting." I started him on fluids. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. "I need to bring him back. Tonight. He won't survive the wild yet. He needs care. Controlled temperature. Food. Antibiotics." I met his eyes. If he doesn't go back, the mother might leave the others. Think he's been taken. She trusted me. If I break that now, we lose them all. He didn't like it, but he nodded. "Give me 6 hours. I'll stabilize him as best I can. Come back just before dark." I nodded. When I drove back, I took a long way around. Something in me said I was being followed. Paranoia maybe, or instinct. As I approached the cabin, the sun was already dipping behind the hills. I parked, grabbed the crate, and whistled softly. No answer. I walked to the clearing. No sign of her. But as I turned, I heard a soft growl. She was behind the tree line, watching. I set the crate down, unlatched the door, and stepped back. The cub crawled out slowly, weak but alive. He let out a tiny cry. That did it. She rushed forward, sniffed him all over, then turned to me. She didn't growl this time. She came closer, close enough that I could feel her breath. She brushed her side against my leg as she passed. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the stars, not quite sure if I imagined it all. Frank showed up the next morning. "You're either crazy," he said, stepping out of his ATV, "or you just rewrote everything we thought we knew." I poured him coffee. He looked at the fresh tracks by the steps. "There haven't been snow leopards in these mountains for decades," he muttered. "And they were never supposed to be here in the first place." I didn't have an answer, only more questions. I was repairing a section of the fence when I first saw the SUV crawl up the dirt road. Sleek, dark, out of place here. It crunched to a stop in front of the cabin, dust settling on the windshield. The man who stepped out wore polished boots and sunglasses too clean for the forest. He smiled like he knew something I didn't. "You must be the guy in the cabin. Dylan Ward. I represent Ridgeview Development." I didn't shake his hand. "What do you want?" He looked around, taking in the surroundings like a realtor eyeing a property. "You're squatting on land earmarked for a luxury eco-resort. We just got final approval from the county. Surveyors are coming next week." I crossed my arms. "This cabin's been here since before your company even existed. And this land's protected." "Was protected," he corrected. "The station was decommissioned, the protection order expired." I felt heat rise in my chest. "There are endangered animals here." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Endangered? Please. We've done the surveys. Nothing lives here except squirrels and overgrown raccoons." I said nothing. My fingers curled into fists. "Look, I'm just the messenger," he said, backing toward his car. But maybe it's time to start packing up. Things are going to change fast out here. He left a card on the hood of my truck. That night, the edge of my tool shed went up in flames. I smelled the smoke before I saw it. Ran out with a bucket, doused it before the whole thing caught. But the message was clear. Not a warning. A threat. The next morning, the leopardess was agitated. Pacing, her tail whipping low against the dirt. The cubs no longer played near the trees. They stayed closer to the cabin, watching her. She kept looking toward the woods. Listening. Something had shifted in her. I knew the feeling. I spent the afternoon compiling every video clip I had. Photos of the cubs. The mother drinking water. One of them brushing up against my leg. I added a timestamp, my location, and wrote a detailed message. I sent it to the state wildlife office, 3 environmental groups, and an old contact at the local university who used to study big cats. Then I waited. Nothing. Hours passed. I checked my inbox, my phone, even the old satellite laptop I kept for emergencies. Still nothing. Around dusk, the vet called. "Hey, listen, someone came by the clinic today. Asked about you. Didn't give a name. Just said he was with some environmental audit group. Wanted to know if I treated anything unusual." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. Just said I treat dogs and cats." But the guy kept asking. He knew too much. Like he'd already seen the files. "Thanks for telling me." He paused. "Be careful, all right?" I hung up and went straight outside. The leopardess was lying near the woodpile, eyes half closed. The 2 cubs wrestled quietly in the grass. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. I did a head count. 1, 2. Where was the 3rd? I scanned the tree lean, the brush, behind the shed, under the porch. Nothing. Panic climbed my throat. I grabbed a flashlight and started calling out, like the cub could answer. 15 minutes into the search, I saw it. A trail of flattened grass. A broken twig. And then, a boot print. Human. Large. Next to it, a faint drag mark in the dirt, small prints trailing beside it. No blood. No struggle. Just absence. I followed the tracks down past the clearing, where the earth was softer. Another boot print. Then another. I crouched and touched the indentation. Still fresh. I looked back toward the cabin. She was standing there. The leopardess. Staring at me. Not moving. Her head turned slightly. Then she let out a low, long sound I hadn't heard before. Not a growl. A cry. I followed the trail through the underbrush with a flashlight in one hand and a crowbar in the other. The tracks weren't even an hour old. Whoever took the cub wasn't trying hard to hide it. That told me one thing. They didn't expect to be followed. But I was right behind them. The moon was out, barely, and the woods were thick. Every branch scratched my arms, but I didn't slow down. I kept my eyes on the footprints. One set. Heavy. Measured. After half a mile, I spotted a flicker of movement ahead. I dropped low, killed the flashlight, and crept forward. A man was crouched near a crude wire cage, fiddling with a latch. Inside, the cub whimpered. Not loud, but enough to make my stomach turn. I stepped forward and said sharply, "Step away." The man spun around. Mid-50s. Thick beard. Rifle slung across his back. He didn't look scared. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I should ask you the same." He stood fully. "Relax. It ain't hurt. Just caught it." "Why?" "Because someone paid me to." I raised the crowbar. "Let it go." "Now." He laughed. "You really think anyone's gonna believe you over me? I'm a licensed trapper. You're a squatter in a shack. This ain't your fight." She trusted me. "That cub is hers." He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Some resort guy wants the land cleared. Cats like this make people nervous." I took a step closer. "Let him go." The trapper sized me up, then finally sighed, unlatched the cage, and the cub stumbled out. It ran straight toward the woods. My flashlight caught its silhouette vanishing. "You just made a mistake," he muttered. "So did you." I turned and walked away, listening to make sure he didn't follow. Back at the cabin, the mother was waiting. The 2 other cubs were nowhere to be seen. Then I heard a rustle, and the lost cub appeared, weak but alive. She sniffed him all over, then looked up at me. This time, her gaze wasn't pleading. It was fierce, focused, protective. We were out of time. Inside, I found my old laptop. It took 10 minutes to boot. I still had one contact in the world who might care about this. Nina Cortez, former journalist. We dated for a while when I still lived in the city. She covered wildlife issues before everything dried up. I typed the message carefully, told her everything. Attached photos, GPS coordinates, a shaky video of the cub returning to his mother. I didn't expect an answer. 15 minutes later, she replied, "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I can be there by noon tomorrow." The next morning, I barely slept. The leopardess had taken the cubs deeper into the woods, hidden them. I couldn't blame her. I spent hours setting up the only camera I had left. Motion sensor. I placed it near the food spot, angled just right. By midday, Nina pulled up in a dusty Subaru, still in the same combat boots I remembered. She stepped out and didn't bother with hello. "Where?" I showed her everything. The burned shed, the trap site, the prints, the camera. She took it all in. Quiet, sharp, focused. "I need to see the animal," she finally said. "She won't come out with you here. But maybe, if I stay alone, she might bring one back." Nina nodded. "Then let's do it." That night, I sat alone on the porch, camera on standby, motion light off. And just before dawn, she came. One cub trotted behind her. The others stayed in the shadows. She walked directly into the frame, lifted her head, and looked right at the camera. Click. Nina reviewed the footage 30 minutes later. Her face was pale. "This is enough to cause a storm. Will it change anything? Depends on who gets mad first." She uploaded the photos, tagged every major outlet she knew, and wrote a post that started with, "Asterisk, an endangered species isn't asking for protection. She's demanding it. Asterisk." By the afternoon, it had 10,000 shares. By evening, the phone at the ranger station rang. Frank called me. The county board just issued an emergency meeting. The next morning, a black SUV arrived again. Not Dylan this time. 2 men in suits. They had official badges, crisp folders, and polite voices. "You're harboring a dangerous animal." "I'm not harboring anything. I live here." They came to me. They handed me a notice. "This facility and surrounding land are now under review for demolition. Your presence is unauthorized." "You mean eviction?" "The term doesn't matter. The decision is made." They left as coldly as they came. I watched their tires grind into the dirt and thought only one thing. We're running out of time. The sound of the diesel engine echoed through the valley long before the machine appeared. I stood at the edge of the path, boots planted, arms crossed. Behind me, the old ranger station. In front of me, a yellow bulldozer with a man in a hard hat gripping the controls. Nina stood beside me, phone in hand, live streaming. Her voice was steady, but her eyes flicked between me and the crew like she was ready to run. "We are live from Pine Ridge, where a man and a journalist stand in front of a government-sanctioned demolition in protest of the destruction of endangered habitat," she said clearly. The crew chief got out of a black truck and walked toward us. "You need to move," he said flatly. "Orders are to start clearing by noon." "Not happening," I replied. He looked over at the cameras, at Nina. "This is private land now. You have no legal standing." "And what about moral standing?" Nina asked. "You realize you're bulldozing through the territory of an endangered species?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and signaled to his crew. I stepped forward and stood directly in the bulldozer's path. "You drive through me, or you turn around." Silence. Then a sound. Not from the machines. From the trees. A low, guttural sound. Then footsteps. Deliberate. Heavy. She emerged. The snow leopard. Alone. She walked out of the forest with the same slow, calm dignity I'd seen that first day. Her coat glistened in the light. She stopped just behind me. Everyone went still. Phones came up. Cameras clicked. She didn't crouch. Didn't growl. Didn't run. She just looked. At them. At us. And in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't just a wild animal anymore. She was a mother. A protector. The crew chief lowered his radio. "We need to call this in." The machines went silent. For the next 3 days, the standoff continued. Reporters showed up. Protesters arrived with signs. Someone pitched a tent. Frank brought coffee and stories. Nina worked around the clock, getting the footage to every outlet she knew. Then, late on the third night, headlights came up the ridge. Black SUVs. Again, but this time, the logos were different. World Wildlife Alliance. International Conservation Corps. Global Biodiversity Council. Scientists stepped out. Real ones. Over the next 2 days, they set up monitoring equipment. Took soil samples. Measured tracks. Set trail cams. Interviewed me, Nina, even Frank. They saw what we saw. A species that shouldn't be here, yet was. And a human who hadn't tamed it. but had listened. Eventually, the bulldozer was hauled back down the ridge. Not a win, but a pause. The cabin stayed. For now. Over the weeks that followed, the cubs grew bolder. I built them a small shelter in the woods, half buried under rock and timber. A safe spot. They still came close sometimes. Close enough for me to hear their rough little calls. But they never let me touch them again. And that was how it should be. Their mother came each morning, just before sunrise. She would sit by the tree for a while, not looking at the house, just watching the wind. Then, without a sound, she'd vanish again. It became a rhythm, a ritual, until this morning. She didn't come. I waited, made coffee, walked the edge of the woods, called softly. Nothing, only silence. But then I saw it. A single print, fresh, in the dirt, right where she always stood. Nothing else, just that. I crouched beside it and laid my hand in the mark, still warm from the sun. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. She didn't come because she didn't need to anymore. Whatever this was between us, this strange alliance, it had done what it needed to do. She had survived. They had grown. And I had remembered what it meant to stand for something. I walked back to the cabin. The wind moved through the trees. And somewhere, just past the ridge, I thought I heard her call. Not for me, for the world she belonged to.